I'm John Caldera, president of the Independence Institute and your devil's advocate. One of the things that draws me to Colorado, unlike any other place, is that Colorado was a beacon for people who wanted to come here and write their own biography, people who wanted to take risk, people who saw the opportunity that freedom and liberty and free association was available in Colorado. I worry that we lose this. And for me, one story that is Colorado through and through is that of Jake Jabs, owner of American Furniture Warehouse. Jake, we've talked a few times, but I'm always thrilled to talk to you. Thank you for being here.
Nice to be on your show. Thank you.
Hey, so first things first. Growing up, you were mauled by lions constantly. And every kid in school had a Jake Jabs impersonation. As you told me, every comedian had one too. Tell me again the story of why you have it in your book here.
Animals, yeah.
You had all the animals.
Yes, yeah, okay, yeah. I have three
and why
daughters.
you don't have them anymore.
Okay, I have three daughters, and we bought them a puppy for Christmas. And I give a lot of public speaking. They say, how many of you have dogs? Almost every hand goes up. Everybody's got dogs. That dogs is a man's best friend, so everybody's got dogs. So they said, Dad, you should put the puppy on TV. I was making commercials then, so I did. And right away I started getting offers for their big black Labrador or whatever it was. There was an outfit filming. He actually used to be a trainer for Walt Disney. And he had a place up at Evergreen, had a bunch of exotic animals. And he was filming for Johnny Haas, Lincoln Mercury, where they're using the cougar as...
Oh, right, I remember that.
As their pet, with the cougar. Anyway, so he brought his pictures down and said, Jake, you should use these exotic animals in your commercials. And I didn't see it. I said, animals and furniture, I don't get it, so I'm not going to do it. My secretary always wanted to pet a baby tiger. So she conned him into bringing the baby tiger down the next morning. I go to work, and here's all the employees gathered round. I'm mad because nobody's working, but everybody, I saw a lot of interest in the exotic animals. So we started using exotic animals. So over the years, we've name it, we've used everything from Bama bulls to lions to tigers to wolves, whatever, So people just like the exotic animals.
Well, as kids, I remember as a grade school kid, we watched you, and we're like, he's going to get it this time. He's going to get it this time. And so we all had to watch because there was going to be one. Let's start at the real beginning. Yeah. You're not actually a Coloradan.
Montana.
You're from one of those evil states. You came from Montana.
Yeah.
You were raised on the farm. Tell me about the farm.
Yeah, okay. Well, my parents were immigrants. My dad was from Poland and mother from Russia. And the way you got started farming, you became a sharecropper on the Crow Indian Reservation. You shared part of your crop for staying there. So, we grew up very poor. It was just a small frame house, and Dad moved up a log cabin as the family grew. And I remember sleeping, as 5 boys slept in that log cabin. We had no heat. I remember getting in the cold Montana winter mornings with no heat. There was no running water. The bathroom was outside, But we didn't know we were poor.
Yeah, the bathroom was an outhouse.
Yeah, an outhouse, yeah. Go to Montana in the cold winter morning, go to the outhouse, But it was what it is. We didn't know any better, It was a big family of immigrants, So we didn't know we were poor. My dad always said this is a land of opportunity. Can I tell you about my dad's background?
Please.
Yeah, okay. Anyway, he was born and raised in Poland. And there were Germans living in Poland on my dad's side, Germans living in Russia on my mother's side. So in 1916, Russia came into that part. That was during the First World War. And Russia came to that part of Poland and drafted my dad in the Russian army. Then in 1917, Lenin and the communists took over Russia. So my dad was in the Russian army when Lenin and the communists took over. So he was an eyewitness to what happened. And what happened, he tells stories, people wouldn't work. They wouldn't drive the tractor down the road. And of course, then people was starving, actually. That was why witness to millions of people starving to death. And Lenin could see that communism wasn't working. And to stop the starvation, he gave everybody an acre of land. That basically stopped the starvation. But he also developed what he called a new economic policy. And that's in the history books. If you read an encyclopedia, the new economic policy. And the economic policy was really a free market policy. He was allowing foreign trade.
It was ownership. Lenin realized in order to feed these people, they need to own.
That's right. Yeah.
Without ownership, without some sort of property right, there's no incentive.
Well, you know what? First thing the communists do is they take everything away from you. They take the land and all the property away from you so that you had no property. So he learned that right away, that if you don't, there's no incentive to work. If you can't keep what you earn, why work?
Right.
And that's really the failure, really, of communist socialism. You can't keep what you earn. So he learned that right away. And my dad said if Lenin would have lived, communism would have short-lived. He died at age 53. And my dad was in the Russian army for 7 years under Lenin. And they wouldn't let him out because he could speak Polish, German, and Russian, and they needed interpreters real bad.
So he was Polish.
Yeah.
Got drafted. German.
Yeah.
But he then was drafted to work for the Russians.
Yeah, he was drafted in the Russian army.
When the Tsar was still in power.
Yeah.
And then when the communists took over, they took your dad too.
Yeah.
So he didn't have freedom in any of this.
He was in the Russian army. They wouldn't let him out. They wouldn't let him out because they needed interpreters real bad. In fact, us kids always thought he went AWOL out of the Russian army because he always seemed to be looking over his shoulder a little bit.
Really?
Yeah, but he was in there for 7 years, from 1916 to 1923. And then he went to South America. He had to work 2 years for a boat ride in South America. And we always felt that he probably kind of escaped from communism. Had to work as a street musician in Sao Paulo, Brazil, learned to speak Portuguese. So he learned to speak another English. Finally immigrated to the States, of course, learned to speak English. So my dad could speak 5 languages fluently.
Wow.
So anyway, the lesson learned there was, and on my mother's side, they were farmers. And they were corresponding back and forth, and then they told stories. They were starving. There were seed grain. If you're a farmer, you got seed grain. The soldiers would come in, take the seed grain, steal the seed grain because people were starving. If you don't have seed grain, you can't plant your crops.
For those who don't know, this is the product you make so you can plant it next year. Without those seeds, you have no income.
And my dad told stories about animals where some people saved their animals, and the soldiers would come and take the animals, kill the animals because people were starving. If you didn't have animals, you couldn't have young animals, and so that's the whole downside of communism is you lose your crops and you lose everything. So,
how did they get here?
Well, my dad was.
And why Montana?
My dad was sponsored. He had an aunt in Detroit, and he was living in Sao Paulo, Brazil at that time, and so she sponsored him to come here. On my mother's side, her family came out. What the Germans were doing in Russia on my mother's side was at Catherine the Great, where she brought the Germans into Russia, taught them how to farm and all that stuff. So they were part of that. So there was a 100-year term, that agreement that she made that after 100 years, they couldn't be in the Russian, they didn't have to be in the Russian army. Well, the 100 years was running out. And so my grandparents, on my mother's side, so they decided to immigrate to the U.S. before the 100 years run out, before they'd have to join the military or whatever the Russians wanted them to do. So that's how they came over.
So you're born into this farm in
Lodge Grass, Montana.
And you I remember what you told me. You won the first baby of the year contest. Yeah. When were you born?
November 23rd.
November 23rd. This is a small town. So when you said you didn't know you were poor, and I look at what you've achieved in your lifetime, and I hear today it can't be done. It can't be done. That everybody, if it is done, it's because of privilege, either your white privilege or you know somebody or it's cronyism. And I think there's a lot of truth to that. But I mean, your story destroys this notion that in America, hard work and taking the right risks in the right way
have that
doesn't work.
Entrepreneur mentality. I still have the entrepreneur mentality. Just recently, the change we made, getting through this coronavirus, our business is booming. I just made a sheet. I didn't bring it with me about back orders, because what you run out of merchandise, instead of selling a floor sample, you back order. It's going to come in September or whatever it is. I made a sheet on that and give customers, hey, this is what it's about. And that shipping date might slip. The point I'm making, I think you have to think entrepreneurial, and I think that's probably one reason they named the school Jake Jabs Entrepreneurial School and I keep today think about, in the morning I get up, I normally stay in bed a little extra long thinking what I can do better today, how I can make American Furniture a better company today. But hopefully right now, probably there's more opportunity right now after this pandemic, because all of a sudden you're looking at all these empty buildings and you can get into one of these empty buildings, or that's what I did with American Furniture.
Let me draw this out for a little bit. In entrepreneurship and capitalism, the economists call it creative destruction, which is one man, a business falls apart and everyone goes, oh, what a waste. A guy like you looks at that and goes, wait a second, they failed there, but I see the different ingredients that could change and make it. Tell me about American furniture, not the warehouse.
Yeah, where I started, this is the 74, 75 recession. And I was running sales for a living then. And I was selling stuff from I started a furniture factory in Montana, and I was selling Mangurians who had built that great big building down on Furniture Row. And they went out of business. And so I said, looked like there's an opportunity for this farm kid from Montana to start a big business. And the old American Furniture Company went out of business. It was called American Furniture Company. And so I thought, well, here's an opportunity. And so I negotiated, they had $1.5 million worth of assets. These were old furniture trucks. These were adding machines and typewriters and old stuff.
Right.
$1.5 million. I gave them $80,000 cash for $1.5 million.
$80,000 cash.
For $1.5 million worth of assets, because I was going to use them. I was going to open a store and use those assets. So, and I think there's opportunity like that today. I think right now you can probably buy some buildings or some land, some property, but also some assets of people that are closing up. Say a restaurant closed up, and you can buy maybe the assets of a nice restaurant for 10 cents on the dollar. So I think there's really opportunity today, right now, on a lot of that type
Tell me
of stuff.
about the mindset, though, because a lot of people will go, well, easy for Jake. You know, he's a millionaire. He's done this.
I didn't know.
But when you started this, your first opportunities, when that entrepreneurial mindset kicked in, you were working in a music store, weren't you?
Well, yeah, I started a music store, yeah. Yeah, well, just to backtrack a little bit, okay. And you asked me how it was my Ray Price, I was playing music. What happened, got out of the service, went back to the farm, and 3 of us boys were in the military at the same time. I don't know if you saw that picture of us.
I've got it, yeah.
Yeah, of us 3 boys in the military at the same time. 2 of them got out before me, so I went back on the farm. And if there was room today, I'd probably be farming today, but there wasn't room. My parents were always scared of a recession. And I'd say, Dad, buy that 40 over there. No, there's going to be a recession. He was always scared to expand the ranch. It was always a smaller farm ranch. So I took off. I hooked up with a Grand Ole Opry group, played Canada with them.
You played the guitar?
Yeah, I'm a pretty good guitar player.
So I've heard.
Yeah, we're family musicians. That's one thing my dad brought to the table. He was a violin player, played music. All of us kids, he always saw we had instruments. Though we were poor, he always saw. I was playing in the Lodge Grass high school band when I was in the 2nd grade, because Dad made a deal with the band director to give him a quarter of a beef. Us kids would have instruments to play. So I played all the way through grade school with trumpet, cornet, baritone, sousaphone. I played with the Montana State College marching team. So I played all of the valve instruments. But he always saw we had instruments, so he brought that to the family of music. So anyway, I was playing music in Nashville, Tennessee for Ray Price and Webb Pierce in a Hitch and Post bar right across from the Grand Ole Opry. And Ray Price says, Jake, come up and rehearse with us and go on tour. I made a decision that night I'm not going to be a bum musician. Because what you see is I don't know if I could sing like Ray Price. I'd probably still be playing music, but I couldn't sing. I wasn't a good singer. So I'd be touring, and I've been touring with some of these guys, and these are 10th graders. But the other thing I saw was a lot of abuse.
It's hard living. That is hard living.
Well, I saw a lot of abuse of drugs and alcohol and all that stuff, just Hank Williams, 29 years old, and so many of these people died. Elvis Presley, a lot of these people.
Did you ever see Hank Williams?
No.
Okay.
I'll never see him. But anyway, I decided that night I'm not going to go up and rehearse with Ray Price. I'm going to go back to Bozeman. I made money going to college. I made money teaching guitar and playing music. I had a band. I have a picture of my band.
I've seen the picture.
My brother and I. This is a band we had here.
I've seen that picture.
Yeah, that was my band, and that was me playing steel guitar then. This is my brother here. And I actually made money going to college, playing music, and teaching.
So you put yourself through college at Montana State, playing music and teaching music.
Guitar at a music store. And so I said, I'm going to go back to Bozeman and teach guitar. Now, this was in the 50s, and everybody wanted to play the guitar. So I started a little guitar studio. It was about this size right here, and teach out guitar. Made a deal with Montana State because I had a degree in education and a minor in music. If they would feed me students, they could get a credit for 101 music at Montana State. So they were feeding me students. So I was making money, see. There was a music store downtown Bozeman, Montana, right in the middle of town, and it was a partnership, a recession going on, and negotiated $1,500 cash for half of this music store. So I leveraged that $1,500 investment to this multi-million-dollar business that I have today.
Wow. And I remember once you telling me you lived in a hotel for like $4 a week or something like that, and you found a broken radio and fixed it so you could have some entertainment at your hotel.
That was my only worldly possession. Was this?
But you're convinced that a person today who doesn't have anything, who came from humble beginnings as you did, that the conditions are still right in America, that they can do what you did.
Yeah, absolutely.
And do you think it's even easier now to do what you did?
Because there's so much education out there. Look at the information you get on your iPhone, information you get on your iPad. There's so much. It's an age of information. So it's and you don't have to go to college to do it today. I mean, you can do this just Googling stuff on your electronics. So it's more. I think, like I say, I started American in a recession. I think there's opportunities recession. I think right now there's opportunity.
But talk to me about the fear that entrepreneurs have, and that everybody has a great idea. Everybody has a great idea. Very few people have the execution to take that idea and go, that restaurant there that's going under, they have what I need. And if I took that there and this here and put them together, I could do something and actually go through it. For a lot of Americans today, they don't see that as an opportunity, or they're too scared to take it because it's risky. And I don't think Americans today value risk that entrepreneurs take, that it is scary. You put everything on the line to make these businesses.
I think where that comes from is my parents came with nothing. Immigrants come over with a shirt on their back, and they were successful. And I think that's where that came from, is that you can start with nothing and make something of yourself. My parents did it. All my family have done it. And that's the feeling I have today. If I went broke today, it wouldn't bother me. Another thing is, I think the love of money is that's in the Bible, I think, somewhere. The love of money is the root of all evil. I never did it.
The Bible said money isn't the root of all evil.
Yeah.
It said love of money is the root of all evil.
Yeah, the love of money. I never did any of this for money. I never did. I still don't. This car I drove up in today is a 13-year-old car. Runs fine. I put the money back in the business, but I think if you enjoy what you're doing, I think passion for what you do. So if you find something you like, and then the money is a byproduct of being successful. That's always with me. I never ever planned to have a multi-million-dollar business like I have today. It was just a byproduct of being successful, giving people real value, and keeping up with what's going on, new furniture, new styles, and whatever. The other thing is keep your credit good. I did a couple of talk shows recently, one on KHOW and one on KO, about the recession, and they asked us, what's the one thing? Keep good credit and keep out of debt. That's what I did. See, I paid $1,500 cash for my half interest for my music store. Paid $80,000 cash. So if
people don't want to save. Today.
That's the mistake. They don't want They don't want to live below their means.
Right.
They don't want to live in this hotel for $4 a night and that type of thing. So I think love of money is what spoils, and they don't want to sacrifice. And come up with some money. That first $10,000 you make, supposed to go to work for you. That's what happened to me. That money buys inventory. I bought guitars and music stuff, We
also don't have a system that encourages people to save. We have a system that encourages people to go into debt. You get a mortgage, which, by the way, I think is usually a good idea, but you get to write off your interest. You don't get it, and if you save money, you pay taxes on your interest that you make, and so it's very easy for people not to save. If you didn't save the $1,500 back in that'd be 1954. So without that $1,500, which would be a whole lot more, you never would have gotten started, at least in the way that you did. When you say this thing of, if I woke up broke tomorrow morning, it wouldn't bother me. Make me believe that, because you're Jake Jabs. I grew up with you. What do you mean if you didn't have money tomorrow, you'd be okay?
If you enjoy what you're doing, though, if you enjoy what you're doing, Well, what's the difference? I don't think money, like I said, I don't think money and happiness are synonymous. I really don't. For example, in this last pandemic, now we were shut down for 6 weeks, and we survived that. I had 3,000 employees, had to furlough 2,000 of them. So, all of a sudden, cash is going out the door pretty damn fast. But luckily, I had money in the bank. Everything is paid for. I have no car payments, no house payments, all my furniture is paid for. My trucks are paid for. Everything's paid for.
I would hope your furniture is paid
There's
for.
no debt. There's no debt.
Right.
But that's how you survive recessions. That's the way you survive the pandemic. The people that aren't surviving the pandemic are the ones that had debt.
Right.
They got to they got to repossess from the bank or whatever it is. So I always had enough cash where I didn't have to worry about a recession or this pandemic. We came out, there's a real pent-up demand. Our business is booming right now because there was a huge pent-up demand for furniture. And we survived this.
Also, people are stuck at home, in which, they're getting tired of looking at their furniture because they're... Well, and that's the other part of this, which is not only did you strike something with American Furniture Warehouse, and it was good for you, it was good for guys like me. People can't afford furnishing their homes, going to high-end places,
crazy.
And you need furniture. Where are you going to go? You can go to IKEA, I guess, now if you want something you have to put together or it falls apart pretty quickly. But when my kids came along, if it wasn't for Jake's furniture, they'd be sleeping on cinder blocks. So your success also helps out your customers.
Yeah, and I guess that's always been in my DNA is to have good pricing, giving back. We give over 1,000 charities a year. Maybe that comes up from growing poor, where you saw a lot of, in the Crow Indian Reservation, there was a lot of poverty, and like we had a neighbor died of epilepsy, for example. Another one had polio and those type things. So I think that's where my appreciation for good health and America comes from, is just seeing a lot of poverty and poor and helping people. So we believe in helping, and I believe in giving people value. If they have a value, if it ain't a good value, I don't go there.
You spend a lot of time traveling because you buy furniture, you buy supplies. So not only do you make furniture, but you travel the world. You go to Asia a lot. What do you see as far as business outside of America versus what we have in the United States? Do you see a difference? What have you learned on your travels?
Well, the reality is this: if you can build some cheaper in China or Malaysia or Philippines or wherever, and that's what they're doing. And one reason they do it is they don't have all the
environmental laws, the OSHA laws,
there you go,
the regulatory stuff, the union laws,
right. So they can build it cheaper. And in my opinion, they should do that. I'm a free trader. I believe in free trade. If they can build something cheaper in Vietnam or Philippines or Malaysia or wherever, let them build it. First place, it helps their economy. I've traveled in 50 countries. And whenever time I go to a foreign country, I study their economic system. I always get a book and read it on the plane and study their economic system. And the ones that are successful are the ones that believe in free market, free enterprise, so that they can build something and do it cheaper than they can. And that's the advantage they have over America. And of course, with Trump, with all the duties and everything, he's trying to do against that. And some of that ain't all good, because all of a sudden we have to pay more for products because of 25% duties. So I'll let the countries that can build it cheaper build it. Then it's good for them. It raises their standard of living.
And it's good for your customers.
Good for our customers. Yeah,
it's
good for everybody.
It's good for everybody, except I'm going to say that it's not good for the American worker who would have been building that at a higher price, granted, because of all the regulatory costs, and therefore it's unfair competition for that guy.
Well, that's the mentality that they use, yeah.
And why would you disagree with that?
Well, what America should do is get rid of all the things that, I don't say all of them.
Right,
that would be an
ridiculous.
exaggeration.
When you think about the OSHA laws, the zoning regulations, the building codes, and not that all these things are good, but it's so overpowering. It's one thing I look at people who've made their millions in the tech world. They've come up with a technical product, a website, or a new software code, and they become gazillionaires. And that's terrific. I'm glad. But I think about guys like you who had to deal with the local zoning board and then getting the okay to build this and then to ship this in and then all the bureaucrats and all this. I mean, even you've got stores all over. You have to chase the sales tax down by each city. So when I buy a table there, they go, "Where do you live?" What do you get? Well, because if you live in Boulder like I do, you've got to pay this, and then you have to keep track of it all and send it out to 500 different governments. The guy who created that website, and became a multimillionaire in the course of a few years, has no appreciation for that, and it's no wonder that folks like our governor, Jared Polis, who's done incredible things in business, but he hasn't had to do that kind of stuff.
Well, the thing that we do in America is come up with inventions and good ideas. On Facebook and all of us, so many of these things have made America, and that's really what we should be doing in America. We're better educated. I think we have more opportunity in those type fields, all the technology fields, and that's an advantage we have over, I think, the rest of the world. And that's what I think. I wouldn't worry too much about building a chair cheaper in North Carolina versus Asia, let's say, because I think there's a lot of other opportunity in the technology area.
You have a business school named after you at your alma mater. You also have something at CU and now
CU Denver.
CU Denver and now Pueblo. You have always been good to the Independence Institute when we've sent over young people, interns, to some people from out of the country to explain the story. You seem to really love the educational aspect. Otherwise, you wouldn't give so much to it. Why do that? Out of all the things you could be doing with your money, why promote entrepreneurship?
And education. I think that came from my military career. What happened in my military career? I landed up in North Africa with a top secret clearance. The way that happened, when I first went to service, I was at a radar site in Punta California. I needed secret clearance. I filled an application for a top secret clearance. Tricks came in, and we needed an officer to go with the European theater war with the top secret clearance, me. So I landed up in French Morocco with a top secret clearance. And landed up, there was a civil war going. When I was there in the 50s in French Morocco, there was no school for the Arabs, no hospital for the Arabs. And I saw that, and I got to travel. I got flying pay, got to travel in 20 countries, landed up living top secret now all over Africa because of the Civil War. They're basically, when I was there, the French pretty much controlled all of that, North Africa, and all that was changing when I was there. And I saw that. And I saw how poor a lot of these Arabs were, living in holes in the ground and that type of thing. And the education, and traveling all that, I believe today a lot of the problems in the Middle East are literacy problems. I think if they had more literacy in that whole part of the world, a lot of because they're at war with each other continually.
Because they don't know what they don't know, and you can't know these things if you can't get information, if you can't read.
Yeah, and the women, they treat the women terrible in some of those countries. So I believe it's a literacy problem. So I support education. In fact, I support schools in Afghanistan and Pakistan right now, particularly women's school for women. So that's where I think it came from, is that I think if people are more educated and treated more evenly, more fairly with different ethnic groups and whatever, this whole thing, with the Black Matter things, I think, again, is a matter of education, too. So that's why I support education. I think if we had education, a lot of those problems would go away.
Why do you think, maybe this is an unfair question, I see a real anger against success in America. What I see lately is that there is a hatred of people who are successful.
See, I don't see that.
Really?
Yeah, I disagree with you on that. I don't see that.
Because I see it so much from the socialistic left that they demonize the people who are most successful. It seemed to me growing up, particularly in this state, that you look at successful people and you go, wow, he did it. I want to do that. You think of Henry Ford, doing what he did, and they're revered. And now you look at whether it's Jeff Bezos or anybody else, and they're like, see how they're exploiting. And like, I guarantee you that you never exploited anybody.
But I think like Bill Gates is respected. I think Mark Zuckerberg with Facebook. I think today there's a lot of people that are still respected, that are rich today, that earned it. Bill Gates earned it for starting Microsoft. So I guess I kind of disagree with you, but you're closer to that than I am.
Because I do politics, right?
That's more. You're more political than I am. I'm kind of staying out of politics right now, so you're probably closer to that. But I personally don't see it, I guess, as much as you do.
Well, I worry about it. I worry about, growing up in Colorado, seeing your success, as a kid, seeing it grow and change, and it was like, wow, I can do that. And I think it would be harder to start that business today, or any business. I think there's more hurdles to go over, more regulations to go over, and I think the chance for someone to be able to experience that success has got to be harder to get started today. Maybe I'm wrong.
Ella, it might be a little bit harder, but I don't think it's impossible. I really don't. I think I still see opportunities out there. Like we just opened a store in Houston, Texas, for example.
You opened a store in Texas.
Yeah, we got two of them now in Texas. But they were
You don't need it. It's Texas.
I opened 2 stores in Arizona. This is starting 2013. They kicking butt. They do way better than my Colorado stores do, and they don't even know about the animals down there as they don't in Texas either. But so I still see opportunities. We have 2 stores in Texas that do over $100 million each store a year.
Wow.
It's crazy business. So I still see opportunities out there, and I think there is. I think, technology and easier is so much faster, and you can do some things a lot quicker with technology. I disagree with you. I think there's still tons of opportunity right now.
I hope you're right, because what I see are more and more are kids being taught in schools, kids being taught through Hollywood that the reason you're not successful is somebody's holding you down. That instead of celebrating the stories of success, we often demonize it. I look at in Hollywood pictures; it's always the rich guy who's the bad guy, particularly if he's in oil and gas. Heaven forbid, that he's the absolute bad guy. And I even look at. I look at IKEA down south, and this is my thing, you may agree or not. I found it so revolting that IKEA got this huge tax package to open up their store. And if I was mom's little furniture store, I'd be like, well, wait a second, where's my handout? They're getting a portion of their tax payments right back to them. They're not paying for that because they worked out a deal with Centennial. And I would look at that and go, well, that's not capitalism. That's cronyism. I can see where people get that confused between those backroom deals versus building your own business.
See, what you just said, I think the Jake Jabs entrepreneurship schools are teaching exactly the opposite of what you're saying. They're teaching there is opportunity. It's okay to take risks, live below your means, and all of things. My 39 reasons to be successful, and they teach just the opposite of what you're saying. There's opportunity out there. If you have an entrepreneurial mindset, you want to take risks, you can make some of yourself. So that's one reason that I supported education is to help counteract what you're saying. And I think there is opportunity, and that's what the Jake Jabs entrepreneurship schools are about.
What are you most worried about in the next 10, 20 years as far as entrepreneurs go, as businesses go? Is there something that really concerns you?
No.
Really?
No.
Think it's smooth sailing?
Yeah, I think so. I think, that America still is a great country, and freedom of press. And the thing that like I go to China and I see how China has no freedom of press and how they're treating Hong Kong right now, taking away their rights and all that stuff. As long as we can stay away from that communist, socialist mentality, we'll be fine. And hopefully we can do that. I think America was born on free enterprise and free market and freedom of religion. That's why when I was in Africa, I delivered all the mail, the top secret mail to the embassy, and I got to ride in the embassy cars going down Casablanca with the flags on them.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and kids would just swarm the car. Want to visit America, want to visit America, visit. Why does everybody want to come to America? Because of freedom of religion, for one thing, freedom of speech, freedom of opportunity, freedom of, just plain freedom. So that's like my parents were always scared to talk bad about the government when I was a kid, because where they came from, if you talked bad about the government, you disappeared in the middle of the night. So it took a while for us kids to say, "Hey, Dad, my dad didn't like FDR." Because he was a socialist, and my dad didn't like him.
I agree, he's a socialist.
Yeah, so my dad didn't like him. I just came from there. What's going on? But he wouldn't talk about it. He said, "Dad, this is America. You can talk bad about the president." And that's a thing we can do. Look at what they're doing to Trump. I mean, you can do that here. You can talk about it. So I still think that there's always going to be the Bernie Sanders. Sure, there's always going to be some of those. And he's an opportunist, really, is what he was. I mean, he thought socialism was something that I could get elected on. I don't think he really was a socialism. He's wrote a book and made millions of dollars, so how could he be?
But I do worry that over time, particularly your investments in education are a really important counterbalance, because as somebody who has kids going through the system now, those are not the messages they're getting in schools. They're getting the messages that the solutions to our problems have a government component, that the government that's going to fix our health care, it's government that's going to fix our housing, it's government that's going to fix these income inequalities. Why is it that Jake gets to have so much money, but this guy doesn't? And that's why we need money. I'm worried that the vision you and I share of this country and of this state isn't being taught in the schools. It certainly isn't being taught through Hollywood. It's certainly not being taught by your former friends in the music industry. So it's why what we do at Independence and what you give to, and you don't need to give it. It's your money. You can do whatever you like. But why it's so needed. I just feel like we're outgunned.
Not all colleges do it, by the way.
I went to the University of Colorado in Boulder. Let me tell you, it is a socialistic factory there.
I know that. My girlfriend she went to school in Boulder. But at the same time, like we do a lot with, say, Aurora Community College. That's a real entrepreneurial school. They come down, do tours of the store. So there's still quite a few. We do give quite a few of those type people. This whole thing in Pueblo where they're naming they have to receive the Jake Jabs Entrepreneurship Award. Those type things. So there's still a lot of schools that are not doing what you say. There is some, of course, maybe, and I think what worries you, maybe there's more, more of those than there is the ones that still preach free enterprise and free market.
Let's start wrapping this up. Go ahead 50 years from now, and we look back, and I'm telling my grandkids about Jake Jabs and the story of it. How do you want to be remembered in all this? Because you've created something that I believe is uniquely Colorado. It was the Colorado story. It was the American story. How do you think history and your family and those of us who remember the story, what do you want to be remembered?
Because we give to thousands of charities. I mean, just like we've helped you, we give to thousands of charities. And I have a full-time person, Jessica, doing that now. And hopefully we're remembered as somebody that helps poor people, disadvantaged people, people with disabilities, that type of thing. So hopefully I'll remember as being a charitable person, giving back. And the other thing is giving people a value. There's nothing wrong with giving a person a bargain. I think that's where a lot of businesses have the wrong mentality. I'm going in to get rich and make money, and see, I've never done that. I just went into business to make a living, and also, but to give people a value and give a bargain. So I think those are the things I'll be remembered for. Like you say, with your kids buying furniture at a good value, that I'll be remembered as being a charitable and giving back.
I will remember all that, but also something else, that so many business owners today seem to back away from, I don't want to get into politics, but philosophy. that they don't want to say. I mean, I got this at your store, and I've given it to a lot of young people of how to thrive in tough times. And you share a lot of the stories that you talk about, just a lot of the rules that you use to make sure you didn't go into debt, that you put yourself on a good path. You are different than other entrepreneurs who do their thing and then kind of keep it to themselves. You are almost evangelical about capitalism, free markets, how to become an entrepreneur, how to treat other people the right way. Other people who start businesses aren't nearly as public about those things because some of their customers might not like it. They could get attacked for it. They could lose customers for it, or it's just why bother?
Well, I think, of course, comes from my background, parents escaping communism and socialism. And the other thing is, I've traveled in 50 countries. And when you see a lot of these 50 countries, the economy is not working, and there's so many of them. To me, everybody should travel. I think if every politician traveled like I have, they would have a different view on things we're talking about. That hey, that socialism, that free enterprise, free market work. China, when Mao Zedong took over China in 1949, it was very, very poor, and it wasn't until he died in 1978. And he tried that great leap forward was a great leap backward, actually, where he wanted educators to go back to the farm. When Deng Xiaoping took over in China in 1978, he had traveled and saw the West nations, how the civilization is so much greater. So that's when the thing that changed China to a free market economy was he got up in Beijing, in front of the Politburo and said, would it be nice if you let farmers free market half of their crops? From that statement, all of a sudden, like growing up in Montana, we used to send all of our grain to China, Right. And around the table would say, eat your food, they're starving in China.
Right.
So anyway, but from that statement, when the first time I went to mainland China, me and my family, in 1982, and they had piles of rice along the road. Well, these piles of rice along the road. Now, so 4 years after Mao Zedong died.
Well, why was the rice on the road?
Because they couldn't take it to market.
They
were exporting it. So in 4 years, they came from an importer of food to an exporter of food, just because they let the farmers free market half of their crops. So the lesson learned there is if you have people an opportunity to keep what you earn, and that's what they were doing. They had an excise for the rice. And the reason they couldn't get the rice, they didn't have the railroads and the highways and the deep sea ports and the containers to take it to market, right, which they have today. But the free market system in China is working. I mean, China today is...
it all comes back to the word ownership. And you go someplace and you rent a car. You treat that a whole lot differently than the car you buy.
Exactly.
Both you and I have 13-year-old cars. You probably have a choice. I don't. But I take care of that car because it has to work.
Sure.
But I've never once washed a rental car. And so something happens when you own
Absolutely.
your own house,
Absolutely.
when you own your own furniture, when you own your own education, when you own your own health care. When you own these things, you start caring. When you own your own retirement, all of a sudden you care about, are we making enough money? Are we financially sound? And it changes your whole worldview. And I think you've just done such an incredible job trying to get young people to see that through everything you've done. All right, I'm going to leave you with this one last question, which is, you used to get mauled by tigers. Now you don't get mauled by tigers. Why don't we have tigers anymore mauling you during these commercials?
Well, what happened, if the advent of Siegfried and Roy, where that tiger almost killed Roy, the federalist says you can't have exotic animals of the public. And the people that we got the animals from, the way they made their money, do you have your picture taken with them by any chance?
No. But
you could come down and have your picture taken with them, and they get $10 went to the guy that had the animals. And they made pretty good money coming down. We used to have a whole kind of assembly line deal, come and take your picture. Well, with that event, they says you can't have exotic animals with the public. In America, the one thing we do wrong, we overreact to one incident. We do it today with the coronavirus. We overreact to one incident, And so they said, you can't have exotic animals with the public. And they came down on us pretty hard. They want to fine us. They want to fine us. And
Even for having it on TV?
well, no, have them in the store.
In the store.
Store with people. And so what happened is that people that owned these animals, their source of income went away. So they just dried up and went away. So we don't have the access to these animals anymore like we used to. We used to get them for free. And they made their money by having pictures taken with them. And that all went away. And anyway, it was an experiment on my part too to make, and it didn't seem to hurt our business. Our business is still booming, still growing. We're up, 10%, 20% every year after year. So it hasn't affected our business, and it's one less thing I have to do.
I miss the damn Lions. I want the Lions. Jake, thank you so much for everything you do for
pleasure.
Colorado.
Enjoyed it. Yeah.
Thanks for furnishing my house. I really appreciate that.
And thanks for the good job you do.
Oh, that's an honor.
If you enjoyed that conversation, by all means, click one of these other great programs. We have the best conversations with the most fascinating Coloradans. And subscribe to our channel. Just click down below and hit that little bell button too. You don't want to miss a single show.